on this computer. There you are, you can start, Pete.
Okay, good evening all. Based on an image that Derek sent me of his M8 Lagoon Nebula, he asked me if I would process it using my processing workflow. And I said, yeah, no problems. And at the same time, I will write a full detailed explanation of my workflow and send it out to you guys. Okay, first step, we all know we've got to stack our images. We can use, I use Siril for stacking, and one of the scripts, OSC pre-processing, and that one uses all the calibration frames, darks, flats, biases, as well as your lights. Or you can use without flats and bias and just use darks and lights. But I use the whole tooth these days. What I also have incorporated is a process called dithering. I don't know if any of you have heard it. It's a process where the pointing position of your sensor or your telescope is changed by a few pixels after each or every alternate image. And this greatly enhances the image quality, as well as removing what they call walking noise, hot and cold pixels, as well as satellite or meteor trails. So I'm using dithering at the moment. And one thing that brought me into dithering was I was reading up a lot about drizzling, which Siril can do, is that to get a proper effect from drizzle, which is a Hubble technique to enhance the images, you have to actually use dithering and then do your drizzle. This process that we're going to get involved with tonight is not going to deal with that. Okay, up on your image, this is the image that Derek sent me. There's the RGB view. Can all see it?
Yeah.
There's the blue channel, there's the green channel, and there's the red channel. And the first thing we do is we select a channel based on a auto stretch. So we'll auto stretch it, and that will give us or emphasize any stacking artifacts, as well as any gradients. When Derek took this image, must have been a very, very good camera. I believe it is the Fujifilm XT30. Excellent little camera by the looks of things. So we didn't have many gradients, but with all stacking, after stacking, one must do a image crop. So it's a right click and just crop out the edges to get rid of stacking artifacts, and that is to make sure that any stretching we do at a later stage, the stacking artifacts don't interfere with it and cause anomalies. And once we've got that, there's a right click and just say crop. And there we have a cropped image. We can look at the green and blue channels and say, okay, what is the best channel for if we do have any gradients? And we say, okay, let's do this red channel. We'll go to image processing, background removal. I use most of the defaults here. The only ones I really play with is the grid tolerance. Let's just move this across a bit. And we'll just say generate. And you will see that it has generated a grid of little squares, little red squares. Some places they're missing, like over here, so I'll just pop one in there. At the bottom here, there are a couple missing. I'll just left click and pop some in there. You all following so far?
Yeah.
Just pop these little grid squares in. There's one missing at the top there. Any that might be in or on your or too close to the nebulosity, a right click will remove them, like I'm doing now. There's a little bit of a nebulosity out on the side here, which we'll take those out of. But basically, that is it. Once we're happy with that, we've got to bring this in to see the apply button. Now we compute our background. Takes a little while.
You would click apply now, it's done, or not?
Yeah, I just had another little thing come up on my screen. Yeah. Okay, apply. That is it done. If we go and look now at the various options, there's your image after applying those functions. At this stage, because of your particular sensor, there's not much color correction to be done here. So I'm going to leave it as is.
Maybe no.
If you do want to do color correction, you would have to go to one of the channels, find an area where there are a few stars, left click, draw a little square, go into processing, color calibration again, select current, and it'll do a background neutralization. Well, let's apply it and see what it does do. And close it, go to the RGB. Obviously didn't need it, pretty much the same. Right, once we've got that, we come out of auto stretch. That's quite important now. I just want to check something here. Come out of auto stretch, we go back to linear. And there is your linear picture. The background is already darkened a bit from the work we've done on it, and not looking too bad at all. We're going to try to do what they call the generalized hyperbolic transformation. This is a new function in the latest version of Siril 1.0.3. And there's quite a hype about it. It is based on a newly introduced, very similar function into PixInsight. And this one is being worked on, is going to be enhanced. And with future releases of Siril, more options using the generalized hyperbolic transformation will be put into the little tool here. So we click on that. And the first thing we see is stretch factor, local stretch intensity, symmetry point. I'm still trying to figure out what that is. Shadow protection, highlight protection, and the black point. What I found with this one is very small, gentle touches and adjustments. Let's do the first one. See, we don't want to do too much. As with any astrophotography image, small adjustments, but many of them are a lot better. If we go to the stretch intensity, it's really brought it out. We don't want to have that much intensity at the moment. We'll leave it about there. Shadow protection. Sorry, I think you're going to have some symmetry point first.
Make a comment on the symmetry point.
To use symmetry point,
Can you hear me?
the best I can say is just by moving it, watch what it does to the image. It tends to lighten or darken the background and enhance the very subtly dust structures within the nebula.
Pete,
And
can you hear
then
me?
shadow protection,
Hello, Pete.
typically that. Highlight protection, you can see the center part here, maybe a little bit too overexposed. We'll bring this back a bit and bring that up there. And so, okay, that looks not too bad. And then we'll go to a black point, but very subtle moves here, because I find that if you go too much on the black point, you actually start losing color. And we don't want to overstretch the image at this time, because it's going to interfere with you see, as we're going darker and darker, it's actually removing some of the color. So I'm going to bring that back a bit. Maybe adjust the symmetry a little bit, maybe the opposite way. It's just a matter of playing with these sliders to see what you want, but the trick is not to overdo it. Okay, I'm quite happy with the way that's brought out the nebulosity and darkened the background. So we have a nice black point on the background, and our nebula is quite visible. Okay, we apply that. Now the next trick is to save this image. You see where the cursor is at the top there now, a little arrow pointing down. You'll save your image wherever you want to save it, and give it a TIFF extension. And when you save it, I don't want to replace it at the moment, but it'll ask you to save where you want to save it to, etc. And what I've done is, because the next step is Starnet, and that takes about 7 minutes to 10 minutes to run through, I've already saved a Starnet image, but I'll just run you through the basis of that quickly. So essentially, we are now finished with PixInsight. Sorry, not PixInsight, with Siril. Any questions so far?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment on. I was looking through it. That what is that one that you had a doubt about what it's for? What's it called again?
The symmetry.
Yeah. If you have a look at your histogram and you see where the level of your peak is, I think that's the sort of point you should set your symmetry at, because you want to operate around that peak point.
You're quite right, because that is quite emphasized in the PixInsight tutorial. You know about.
Okay.
But I don't have my histogram.
Now, if you go bottom right, second from the right at the bottom, there's a histogram icon there. If you open that,
okay.
So you go where you maybe move that middle arrow onto where your peak is, and that gives you a reading, and you use that as your point around your.
Okay, so you've.
I'm just guessing. I'm speculating, but that's the way when I was looking at it, this is what I was guessing.
Well, let's just try it and see. And that seems to knock out my histogram again.
Yeah. The problem is you've got to first check the point on your histogram, then remember it. That's the problem. And then when you go to your this menu, it kicks it away.
Okay.
So if you, for example, move the middle arrow just to see what the reading is.
0.43.
So you see midtones, yeah, 0.43. Call it 0.43 or 44 or 437.
Okay, so you know.
So if you actually close that again and then go back to the GHT and set it so that your number comes up to 0.437. You've got to maybe type it in. The slider's not very sensitive.
Yeah, okay, I'll see what you're getting at.
But I'm guessing, but I think that's how it works.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. Okay. we actually basically finished with that. Our next step is to open up Starnet. And in Starnet, your input file, which is your file that you brought from Siril, and your output file, the same file, and just change the name to whatever you want, or just add no stars at the end of it, and then run it. And basically that will now produce 2 images. Well, produce your original image, which is that one, and your no stars image. Okay. So I'm going to open up the Siril one, Derek's M8 Siril, in Photoshop. Open with Photoshop. If you wanted to at this time, you could take the no stars and take it into Siril as a separate frame and play around with the generalized hyperbolic transformation and see if you can get it better. Save it as a 16-bit TIFF file and use that as the starless image. Okay, so we've opened the worked on Siril image in Photoshop, and in Starnet Plus, I'll click on the no stars image and just drag it into Photoshop. We can just enlarge the whole screen. One important thing, make sure you've got the little magnifier here clicked, and click fit to screen on that image and your first image. Because when we subtract them now, if we don't get them the same size, there's a little bit of a confusion. Very first step is we go to image, third one from the top left in Photoshop. We go to apply image. In the source, we select the no stars image, and in the blending mode, we go down and we select subtract. And we say, okay. So now we have an image that is only the stars and an image that is only the nebulosity, which makes our work from now on pretty much a lot easier. I normally start off with the no stars version. My first option will be to go to image, adjustments, levels. We want to try and move this levels curve as far to the left as possible. So we won't take it right to the edge first shot. We'll make it about halfway. And then we'll OK it. And the second attempt, we can bring it right to the edge. Try and bring that bit closer. And OK it. As you can see now, the image is getting better and better as we're doing this. And a third attempt, we'll just examine the curve, and we see that we got it as far to the left as possible. So I'm quite happy with that. the background might be a little bit too bright. You can just back off a little bit on the middle slider, and maybe it's just a feel. I'll normally leave it around about that to get some form of contrasting between the background and this nebula, or the Lagoon Nebula in the center, and we okay that. The next step I do is curves. So it's image, adjustments, curves. I click on the curves and the line going across. I normally click around about the center to anchor that point, and then bring this up just marginally, and maybe that just down fractionally into below the line. Bringing this part down back to the line, we improve the background black, and we've now stretched further the Lagoon Nebula. And notice that I've used almost like an S configuration, and that I find works best. I'm happy with that. I'll okay it. I might do another curves adjustment, again an anchor point. Now it depends on where you stretch this. If you stretch it right at the top here, it blows out the center, or should I say at the bottom. So a little bit of stretching, but watch carefully how we are now blowing out the center, and we don't want to blow it out too much. So just a very, very gentle S-curve adjustment there, and maybe drop this black point a little bit down. Very, very gentle, as you can see, nothing serious at all. And we say, okay. At this point, any anomalies on the starless image, I would use the healing brush tool. I find that's, you can adjust the size of it here. It's sitting at 149 at the moment. And to use it, Alt, click anywhere in the black. You're now ready. There's a spot there I don't like. I don't like that spot. There's a black spot here. I'll just rub that out. Maybe that's supposed to be there or not, but let's just assume that's an anomaly. And so let's take him out. And that is an anomaly. And we'll wipe those out. So we say, okay, we're fairly happy with that image in terms of the levels, etc. Because noise reduction software these days, especially in the form of Topaz Denoise AI, it has got very, very sophisticated algorithms in it, and we can use denoise at any stage of our imaging, but I prefer to use it now to remove any noise that might be in the image as a result of long exposure photography, all the little black and blues and green little dots, etc. So I'd like to do a noise reduction here now. And again, noise reduction using Topaz Denoise AI also takes about 7 to 10 minutes. But what I've done is I've already done one already. So I'll just pop it into where the areas there. Topaz has had a GST done to it, a GHT and a Topaz on it. I'll just drag that into Photoshop. If we look at what denoise actually did on this image, down at the bottom section here, you can see the speckling, and up here, what Topaz Denoise has done is removed all that speckling. It basically enhanced the dust lanes, giving you a little bit more definition around where it has been obstructed by the noise. Up here, a little bit more definition around that dark area in the nebulosity. So that gives you an idea what Topaz Denoise can do. And very, very sophisticated algorithms. I can give you a preview of more or less what it looks like. It's a plugin, Topaz Denoise AI. I use severe noise or low light. And it gives you options to the amount of noise you want to reduce, and do you want to enhance the sharpness, and you can watch the areas that it's going to sharpen or not sharpen. And it's there. I've done an update on this particular one. You can see there at the top how it's improved the dust lanes, improved some of the definition here, definitely improved the definition here with the sharpening. So, you know, sharpening capability as well as removal of noise is absolutely incredible. And, you know, if you can get hold of it, the latest version is 3.7 and well worth it. I believe it's on sale at the moment, not going the normal price, but on the Topaz is having a sale on it. Right, close without saving. We've got so far with the denoise and all that. Now we're happy with it. We've enhanced it a little bit. This one I'm going to chuck out because this will replace now. Okay, so we're back to our starless and our stars only. My next option, or that I normally do, is what I do camera raw. I go into filter, camera raw. And we have a number of options here. The coloring looks slightly off to me, so maybe I'll add a little bit of temperature to it, a little bit of warmth to it. Exposure maybe slightly overexposed, so I'll bring that down a little bit. The highlights, I'll bring that down to bring out the center core a little bit more. And make the background a little bit darker. Add a little bit of texture to it. A little bit of clarity. And some dehaze. We're quite happy with that. We'll say, okay, we don't want it any brighter. We're going to start blowing out the center and lose some of the definition in the center. We say, I'm quite happy with that. We will leave it at that. The choice is yours. You may like to play around with the sliders more and get it more to your liking. But we can play all night with these on a tutorial. So I think you get the gist of what I'm doing here. We say, okay. Let camera raw do its bit. Radio. A lot of people say now, what about this mottled black background? This is as a result of the atmosphere that we live in these days, really. We've enhanced that by our stretching, etc. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. You get this especially when there's a lot of moisture in the air, excessive moisture in the air. And, you know, if you read with global warming, the overall humidity worldwide has increased about 1.5%. So not very good news for us budding astrophotographers. So what I will normally do here is bring in Vivisa. A lot of you have heard about Vivisa, the Dxo Nick Collection, Vivisa. I used to use this a lot, but now I just use it for specific correction because of its point technology, its control point technology. Near that, bring this right-hand slider down, and you'll see control points. Click on it, and pick an area somewhere here. Increase the size of the circle, and just reduce the brightness a bit. There's a point in the center. Just keep it off the nebulosity. Bring down the brightness of that a bit. Another control point, maybe here. Oops. And reduce the brightness. Maybe one at the top in the corner. So basically, as far as that, and then I find it quite useful to pop one in the center of the nebula, especially this particular nebula, and then go down to warmth and increase the warmth of it a little bit. Maybe add a little bit of red if you want. Take away a bit of the green to play around with the color as you feel you want to. A little bit of hue maybe. I don't know, how does that look? Not too bad, I suppose. And once we're happy with that, we apply it. Vivisa does like to take its time a bit. But as you can see, so far, we've got quite a reasonable, well-balanced image of the Lagoon Nebula. Some of the clouds here, the twirls and the whirls, the dust lanes, all looking pretty good. We say, okay, I'm happy with that. We'll move on to our stars only. Normally, very little work is required here. What I tend to do is go into levels. I might brighten the stars just a fraction so they don't look too fuzzy and dull. I'll accept that. I'll go into adjustments again, and I'll go into hue and saturation. And I'll bring up the saturation of the stars to my satisfaction. Not overdoing it. But now we can see the reds, some of the reds and the blue stars coming out, the old and the news. And if we're happy with that, we can say yes. Revisit our starless one. We say, right, let's combine these two. Before we combine, of course, let's bring this thing back up to a fit. Both the same size. Now, combining these two is a relatively easy job in Photoshop. You press Control on your keyboard, and A. And you'll see immediately a stipple line appear right around your image on the stars only image. Important, the stars only image. Then Control C to copy. Let everything go. Click on your starless image and then go Control V. Now, on your right-hand side, in your layers, you'll see a little column here says normal. Can you everybody see that? You click on the down arrow and you click screen. Now, there are a couple options: screen, lighten, color dodge, that's no good, or linear dodge add. Depends on your options, but I like linear dodge add or screen. Let's stick with screen, which is the normal way of doing it. We now have a very respectable image. If we go back and look at the original image, and now we have produced that. It's taken us, with all the talking, just over half an hour. So my aim of this game is not to be complex in it, to make it as simple as possible, to keep the learning curve as low as possible. And I think, this particular processing flow that I've worked out for myself and I'm now sharing with you guys does a pretty good job at that. One thing, let's go back a little step. In filter, sharpen, smart sharpen. You can apply this before combining your images and just only do it in this area here. But you can apply the radius, the amount of sharpening you want to do, a bit of noise reduction, and improve the lanes a little further. I see from this on a really blown up image, a little bit of tracking in errors in Derek's 120-second exposures, a little bit of a tracking error because he's got some elongation. But you can do some sharpening in this. It sharpens the stars, etc., which I don't really like to do. I would normally apply this sharpening to the nebula only. At the end of that, you can do some very small adjustments on this if you want to, just with simple things like levels. Say I don't like it, the background so dark. You can play around with the levels a little bit. You can go into camera raw again, but before you go into camera raw, make sure that your image is flattened, flatten image. You can go into camera raw again. You say the center is maybe a little bit too bright for me. You can come into highlights, drop it down a bit to bring out more of those dust lanes. You can maybe then, what happened there? I keep on getting a resources systems low. You can play around with the shadows a little bit more, maybe bring down the black point a bit more. And say, okay, let's see what that does. Nice contrast with the background. Nice and clear definition within the nebula. I'm happy with that. You can save it as a final image for your photo album. I think that's the end of it. Any questions, gentlemen?
Pete, John here, just a question. Looking at that photograph, I think it's a very good processed image you've got there. You didn't think of using Hasta La Vista to get rid of a bit of the green in the background?
Because there was no green in the background, I did not employ it.
Okay.
You can use in Siril, right in the beginning of your process, you can use this remove green noise.
Okay.
Or once I think I don't know if you've already received the initial copy I've sent out of the tutorial. Let me go into it quickly. My processing workflow. If you use Photoshop, there's a thing called Hasta La Vista Green, and there is the link to it, and you can go there and download that particular Photoshop plugin. All you do is it's an 8BF 64-bit file, and you just go into your Photoshop plugins and just plug it in there. I'll show you exactly where. Go into there, program files, Adobe Photoshop 22 plugins. It's called HLVG64.
Yeah.
And there it sits in the plugins folder. To access it, it's just a matter of going into Filter, Deep Sky Colors, HLVG. You can apply a weak, medium, or strong filter to it. If you see some green in here, you can say, okay, let's stick out the medium and just click OK. And any green will be removed as efficiently as in Siril, and works pretty well. Actually, excellent for removing green.
Okay.
Then, of course, you can just add some text to this. Let's add text. Just say Derek's M8. Or anything you want to do.
Yeah. And then another question I have, you used your denoise quite late in your processing. Don't you think it would have been a better approach to do it earlier?
You can do it earlier. I just opted to do it at that stage.
Okay.
But as I said before, because it is quite a revolutionary bit of software with the very sophisticated algorithms it uses, not like most software, you say denoise and within a minute it's done its trick. This analyzes virtually pixel for pixel, and takes about, depending on the size of your image, 7 to 10 minutes to actually do the denoise, but very, very efficient at the game. If you, I know what Derek's thinking. If you want to contact me on how to get it, drop me a line, drop me an email, and I'll give you the pointers. Deafening silence.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, look, I wanted to see, how effective it was when you use it. And I think it might be worth buying if it's not too much. So I'm going to go and look at it. But Peter's obviously got some links there where you might not have to part with any money. But I prefer to keep everything on my laptop as either not on it or paid. As I use the laptop for work and so on, I don't want anything questionable on it. All right.
Derek, with this denoise, this wasn't a very good demonstration of denoise because that camera of yours, is damn efficient. Very little noise, especially at ISO 3200. I was amazed.
Yeah.
But I've had images taken where the noise is just so horrific, just green, blue, and red little blocks all over the place. And this Topaz Denoise just obliterates them, and without affecting the quality of the image. It's just absolutely amazing. It's incredibly amazing. And then in closing, the guys that weren't here right at the beginning, I was speaking to Derek about a new bit of software also on the market recently, only the last 8-10 weeks maybe. It's called Dxo Expert. And for those of you who want to stick to things like Deep Sky Stacker for your stacking or other applications, and you prefer to stick to your particular stacking applications, then when you want to process your images, you normally battle, and you've got to buy software like Gradient Exterminator as a plugin to remove the background gradients. This particular software, and I'm going to go and share that screen with you right now, is absolutely superb. There's the Dxo Expert web page. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
The link is in the document I sent out to Derek and to Peter. The download version at the moment is RC2. There is a beta version out, 1.7 RC, what they call 1.7. I can't see much differences. I've downloaded, I can't see many differences in what it does. I think it's just a bit faster. It doesn't take too long to open up. But this Dxo Expert, if you've got any form of gradient from light pollution, etc., this is incredible. It just removes it without blinking an eye. And the other beauty about it, at the same time, it will remove any color casts. If you've got one corner that might be sitting with green on, and the other corner maybe a little bit of blue, or it removes all that color cast and leaves you with a perfectly flat, well-balanced image. And again, these guys that produce software these days, they must be quite bright guys, because it's based on some very sophisticated algorithms again, and you can read up all about it. If you go right down to the bottom here, well, there's a good example. You can see a green cast, red cast, and the one on the right, absolutely perfect. So I would say an absolute must to download. It even does, in my opinion, a better job than dynamic background extraction in PixInsight or in Siril. This is a beautiful, wow piece of software.
Hmm.
And the beauty about it, it's free.
Yeah.
And then you can go down here to the GitHub and read on it. There are a couple of YouTube movies about it. So all pretty exciting stuff. Certainly in the last 6 months, to assist us budding astrophotographers improve our images after spending many hours of photographing, we can get something that really we can sit back and say, wow, I did that. And at the end of the day, you know, puts a big smile on your face. Certainly puts a big smile on my face.
Yeah. No, I think the software people are really running with software for astrophotography. It's amazing. You battle to keep up.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm also pleased to say is, you know, a lot of these guys are offering it for free, which also a big benefit, I think.
Yeah. By the way, Pete, do you run Windows 10 or your Windows 11?
I'm running Windows 10. I don't.
Okay.
I've heard a lot about Windows 11, which I don't like. You need a special. I believe you can get around it, but you need a special chip or something on the chip to run Windows 10. But Windows 11. But I've stuck to Windows 10, and I think I'm running Photoshop 2022.
Okay. I was wondering whether APT will run on Windows 11.
I'm sure it will do.
Okay.
I don't think there's any. I think the only bug that it's got there is to be able to put it onto your computer.
Yeah.
Requires the special section of a device in the chip. The more sophisticated or recent PCs that are coming out have got this little extension on the main processor that allows for. It's all to do with security. It's basically all based on security and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
I think my laptop is about 4 years old and it loaded Windows 11 no problem. So it's obviously got that in it already.
Oh, okay. Are you running Windows 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually find the startup of Windows 11 is a little bit slower than Windows 10 actually, for some reason. I think it just does a lot more at the startup, a lot more checking and stuff.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
haven't tried, Derek, you haven't tried APT on your
I can. Is it a free program or what is it?
APT, yeah.
I can load it and see, and I'll let you know.
APT is completely free. The only time you pay for it is if you want to do some additional applications, like focusing,
For a photo week.
auto focusing, and the wheels, you know, the different color wheels and all that type of stuff. But in terms of controlling your mount and controlling your camera, totally free.
I've got some stuff loaded on my laptop to check after people have spoken about it. I probably got it on already, so I'll just.
This is actually coming up now. IPT Astrophotography Tool.
Yeah.
At the moment, I think it only will allow you to load Canon and Nikon cameras, and then a whole lot of different dedicated astrophotography cameras. But that's basically it there. Basically, you connect your camera, you connect your gear. It's got a whole lot of tools in it. Magnifier, which I use quite a lot. If I find a star and I stick the magnifier, that little box on the star, it magnifies it here, and I can focus nicely. DAV for alignment. Can do planetary work. I think that requires a license for that. Batenov mask. A whole lot of different functions that you've got there.
It's very useful. I must actually get to know it, especially if it's free.
Yeah, it's very handy to do your whole control of your camera and your images. It's a very nice software.
Well, you can handle Nikon, and I'm very interested.
This does everything. This does everything for me. I connect my camera, I connect my gear, I connected to PhD, and I start the guiding, and I get the PhD graph here, and apt will actually, and in this function here, you can have you can select your program for guiding, meta guide, APT pulse dithering, whatever it is. I use PhD guiding. You can switch your dithering on, select the distance, typically 4 or 5 will be good. And then that stays as default. Dither every 2 images or every 1 image. And then, okay. And basically, control is now fully controlled by apt. It will control your lights. It'll control and send pulses via PhD for guiding, the whole bang toot, all in one package here.
Does it give you all your guiding info in this software as well, or do you use separate PhD guiding
I
software?
use PhD, just PhD straight.
Yeah.
I've got it on here.
Yeah, I use this one. Yeah.
Derek, it is extremely useful and very, very powerful.
PhD 2 guiding 2611.
Be using it at Leeuwenbos-Fontein.
Okay. I'll have a look at the APT. I'll let you
So
know. That's okay.
there you connect your guide camera, your mount, and you just say connect all. And obviously in the brain here, this wants to set up a few things. Yeah, wants to know something about your camera, the pixel size of the camera, and the focal length of somewhere along the guide you're guiding.
Yeah, you do all that
a couple of things. But once you've set it up, PhD 2 guiding, I've guided as a test for 15 minutes, and there was not one bit of trailing. That's providing you choose a good guide star, of course.
Of course, you had your thing on a pier, didn't you?
I've got mine on a pier, yes.
Yeah, I've got my tripod on a wooden deck, and I'm sitting there next to it. And if I lean back in the chair, that's what you see. That's what causes that oval stuff. Sometimes if I breathe, I can see it jump in the PhD.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the one thing I can improve a lot on, is just by getting more stable stand for my tripod.
But I think, gentlemen, at the end of the day, you can see the process flow that I've designed for myself works very efficiently. In fact, here is an image taken with my SV Bony 80 ED.
A lot more detail than my one. Yeah.
And basically use the same. Maybe I overdid the sharpening, but I've managed to pull out a lot more of the detail in the dust lanes. And
the camera you use is just a Canon.
say again?
Camera you use, it's a Canon.
This is a 1100D self-modified. In this case, I had the CLS filter in it. I've since bought a little bit narrower filter called the ultra high contrast UHC filter, also an SV Bony make, and my initial trials with it seems to be actually slightly better than the CLS filter. But I've been waiting for the moon to go away so I can give it a proper trial. And I think in terms of another image I used to follow in this, that I followed using this process, was this one. Used exactly the same process that I've discussed tonight. And this was a very, very difficult one. I think I've mentioned conditions poor, maybe a Bortle 8 with a 5-day-old waxing moon with a distinct orange color. The conditions were horrific. But with the process that I've employed tonight and working through it methodically, I managed to produce this image, which I think under the conditions is actually quite exquisite.
Yes, very well done.
But I must admit that SV Bony 80ED using that extra low dispersion glass is just marvelous. I just can't believe it. It actually performs better than my 6-inch reflector. But I must admit that the silvering on my 6-inch reflector is about 9-10 years old, so maybe that could be a reason.
Pete, thanks a lot. There's no further questions. I think you did an excellent job here, and something for us to contemplate using effectively. I have started using some of, I've used Siril up to a certain point, and I've also used the Starnet++. So I just got to go and do a proper follow through right into Photoshop, which I haven't done yet.
No, the Starnet++, I tell you, is, I think it's revolutionized image post-processing. It's an incredible bit of software.
Yeah.
Okay, Derek, as I said earlier to you, I did make some adjustments or added a few things to that tutorial. I'll send it off to you and Peter, and you can
And I'll pause it on.
circulate as you see fit.
Okay, if you want to just have a, if you can see my camera, I don't know if can you see my picture there?
I can see your picture.
Maybe stop. I'll just hold the camera up. This is the camera which my son gave it to me. Can you see it?
Oh yeah.
He gave it to me because he dropped it and the autofocus didn't work anymore. So the insurance actually gave him a new one. He gave me this one. I just got this fitting here in front of the lens so that I can put my Nikon lenses onto this camera. And that's it. Yeah. I mean, the manual focus, forced manual focus is not a problem for stars. The only problem with this thing, I haven't got a control software yet to work. It's got an app which works wirelessly. It's got a wireless card in it. So I sit on my cell phone controlling it. So I can actually sit inside with the thing out in the cold, and I sit inside the glass door looking through the door at it. But every now and then it loses blooming connection when you're halfway through an image. That's the only problem.
I stand to be corrected, Derek, but there's also a camera control package called Astro DMX.
Astro DMX.
Okay.
Astro DMX.
Oh, there I see you've got it on your desktop there. Okay.
This is it, yeah. And it may control your camera.
Yeah.
This is it, yeah. It's written by an IT lady in the UK, in Scotland. Basically, you connect your camera. What is it saying? Yeah. So I don't know what, maybe your camera will come up. And then you just select the format, which will be, 16-bit or 8-bit, and the resolution. And you just say connect, and away you go. So you can try it. It's free. It's called Astro DMX.
Okay, this whole session is still recording, so I'll upload it to YouTube, and anybody wants to re-look at any part of it, we can just send out the link.
And maybe even SharpCap will control your camera.
Okay.
The SharpCap, I don't have a copy of it on this computer, but SharpCap is also a camera capture control software.
Okay.
So you've got 3 options to look at there, Derek: APT, Astro DMX, or SharpCap.
I did Google it. I didn't search for a lot.
In fact, I'll just go to SharpCap quickly for you. SharpCap. There it is there.
Okay. Cameras, what? You click on cameras, just give you a list.
Cameras.
All the cameras, the whole list. These are all astrophotography cameras.
FV Bonies. Now it doesn't look like it'll. No, because it doesn't control a Canon either. You got to run ASCOM Canon or something to run it, and that don't work so well. But certainly try Astro DMX and APT.
Ian, have you've got a Canon? You don't use a astronomy type camera, ZWI, something like that.
No, I've got a Canon, and APT works fine.
Okay.
Focusing a lot. It's and also it does to assist you in finding your object. It's got everything in there.
Plate solving the lot.
Yes, place solving, everything is in there.
Plate solve, go to.
Yeah,
Sync.
I use the plate solve as well. I haven't got the go-to mount, so I use it in connection with Stellarium. And you can, as soon as you've taken a photo, you can, in APT, you can show it on Stellarium. You can see exactly where your camera is looking at. And you can just make adjustments to that. So, no, it's APT function for a go-to 2+ there. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, my HEQ5 mount is a go-to, and you know, app controls that completely. Controls my mount and my camera without any problems.
Yeah.
Complete go-to, plate solve, the whole issue.
Well, Pete, again, thanks a lot. We appreciate your effort you've put in for us. And we've got now, I think, a good workflow to put to the test.
Well, if you guys want any, I just love writing these things. So, you know, if you've got any requests that somebody wants some info on a specific thing, I can take a look at it and see if I can write a tutorial for it.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so if there's nothing else, thanks a lot, everybody. And have a nice evening.
May I just ask Pete a question? Pete, you talk about the Bortle scale. Is this just a matter of experience, or are there some technical methods to determine Bortle scale?
I think there are a few technical, you know, bits and pieces to determine the exact scale, but now from experience, I would look at, say, the Southern Cross and the dimmest star on the Southern Cross. If that is just barely visible, from what I've read around, etc., they say, you know, that would be around about a Bortle 5 or 6. If it's very, very prominent and you can make out the Southern Cross very, very easily, you're looking at a Bortle scale, maybe 4 or 5. I would take a look at, depends on the time of the year. I'm looking now at Scorpio. If I can make out the full Scorpio with the tail without sort of using what I call a verted vision, then I'd say it's a pretty good sky, and it's maybe a Bortle 5 sky and good for photographing. If I've got to look twice at it because of the moisture in the air, or in our particular area here, living amongst the cane fields, they're often burning cane, so we get a lot of smoke, and then it's very difficult to see the tail of the scorpion. You know, you've got to look very carefully, and then you say, no, this is 6 or 7, maybe even 8. So I just base it on my experience, basically. But there are technical aspects to it too. I think you've got to have one of these special photometers and bits and pieces to determine the exact scale.
I see. Okay, well, thanks very much, Pete.
Pete, what you just said now, I think is very, very important. It's a very practical, it's a Southern Hemisphere based experience. Could I possibly ask you just to write a few notes about that and share it to us, and also share it to Angus Burns? I'm pretty sure that will be of general interest to a lot of astrophotographers in South Africa.
What my experience with the Bortle scale?
Yeah, because if you Google Bortle scale, it gives you Northern Hemisphere references to M31 and M33.
Okay.
Southern Cross and Scorpius are very much Southern Hemisphere. And what you described now is absolutely clear.
Okay.
So I would appreciate it, and I think the astrophotography fraternity in general will also appreciate it.
Okay. Because, you know, okay, it's disappeared now below the horizon, but the other one I use is Orion. You know, if I can see Orion belt with the, what they call it, the sword, clearly, very clearly, then I say, oh, not a bad night, you know, Bortle scale 4 or 5. But if I battle to see the sword part of it, and I say, no, you know, this is now getting a little bit, and I often use that as a decision whether I'm going to actually set up my scope, because I'm going to pick up a lot of problems with noise and running noise because of the amount of moisture or smoke or rubbish in the air.
Well, if you cover Crooks and Scorpius and Orion, then you've covered the Southern Hemisphere. So that'll
Basically all of it for all the seasons.
The problem is Scorpius and Orion are not always available, whereas the Southern the Southern Cross and the Pointers and so on, that bunch are pretty well available for most of the year.
24/7 those they are.
Yeah.
not so good in December.
Well, I think you're a little bit more south than we are. So us where we now, okay, we haven't reached December yet, but Scorpio I know is a pretty good one to look at, especially the tail of Scorpio. You know, that's very prominent, and sort of use an expression like sticks out like a dog's ball. Then you know, good night. But at the moment, you know, if you've got to use what I call averted vision, you look slightly off where the star is supposed to be, and you can just sort of now and again see a twinkle. Then you say, not a good night, poor seeing conditions.
Okay, thanks.
But there again, you know, at our age, you know, our eyes are failing us. So maybe they are visible, but certainly sometimes they're not visible to me.
Thanks a lot. That was most informative and interesting.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end the recording now if we're finished. Thanks. Thanks very much, Pete.
Okay, take care, guys. All the best. Be safe.
Thanks, Pete.
Yes.